Welcome, welcome, welcome back. Gara is the frame for this week, and I think my fashion is really boring. It's just really safe. I don't really know why. I don't know. I'm this is not my finest work, and by my finest work I mean I didn't really do anything. This is ready. You ready for default Gara? It's just like very similar. It's just not that different. I didn't change that much. I don't know. Why is this so safe? We can do something way more different. I don't understand. Anyway, welcome back. Yeah, so as usual, here's the Twitch archive parlay form so you can submit questions. And we're going to go over Gara's abilities. We're going to give people a second to come in and do that. And then we're going to talk about builds, everything that's fit to print, from things that are a unique gameplay experience to just things I think are useful if you have that frame, whatever we can come up with. And I have begun adapting these streams into videos, edited, not like editing these streams down, but making videos that are based on the information in these streams. Sort of a greatest hits version if you'd watch the stream, and a way to present the information on my Zandypants YouTube channel if you didn't. That's been pretty fun. I like that. I thought it would feel like too much overlap, but in fact, I rather enjoy it. I do often want to present it in a slightly different way or in a different order, tell a bit of a different story with it. So yeah, look forward to those. Those will be coming out soon when they're ready, soon TM. But yeah, I've fiddled around with them a lot. I've done the Excalibur one probably 4 times and just thrown it out. Not because it's garbage, but because I critique myself too much. But I promise I will eventually release it. I just wanted to be really good, that's all. Cool, let's tell people we're here on Twitter and on Discord. And away we go. Asymptomatic, welcome back. Hello, still very sick. Just chiming in to show my support. Well, welcome aboard. Good to hear from you, Ace. I'm sorry you're not feeling good. I have an idea for a concept for a Gara. This is going to be a sort of sand glass version. How about that? So we're going to do like a green... That's not bad as a place to start. Sand glassy. And then this is going to be copper, I was thinking. We're going to make the color tone kind of beachy. Yeah. I'm not sure how that's going to come together, but we're going to try. And I still want some contrast. We need some dark tones. We got to figure out where those are going to be. And I also want some brighter stuff as well. I don't love the, I don't love that there. Maybe white instead. Maybe. And then secondary, I might leave that dark. And then tertiary, maybe something more explicitly beachy. This might not be tan enough. Maybe we need something a bit more aggressively tan. Yeah. Leave it to Gamma Pal. Yeah. Look at that. There we go. That's what we're talking about. Look how tan this is. I'm not in love with it yet. It reads a little bit like creamsicle at the moment, in my opinion. But I think it's getting there. This is at least way less... It's more interesting than what I had before. Fine. Folks, I had like the most boring Gara fashion going into this stream. This is better. It's not perfect, but we can edit as we go. How about that? Cool stuff. Oh, it looks a bit jade. This green is wrong. Anyway, we'll figure it out. Dragoon, welcome back. Pixel, welcome back. Vampire, welcome back. Yeah, I agree. The Tuesday streams do fill it out really nicely. I like having a stream that is, playing Warframe, or you will be playing other things on Tuesdays from time to time. But that gives it some more room. And it does mean that there's never longer than a day where we don't stream, which I think is good, ideally. Again, at the moment, there's just no real cost for me to stream on Tuesdays. My schedule is such that I am not going to get anything done during that time anyway. It's complicated and personal why, but that won't always be true. So I'm not going to promise I'm always going to do Tuesday streams, but like in theory, it's good, Welcome back. Glad you're enjoying it. Bastards, welcome back. Rancor, you said, what kind of pants do you exactly wear? I'm not sure how to answer that. Jeans. Right now I'm wearing pajama pants because I'm not feeling so well today. Just fit, like, my body aches. I'm not sick or anything. What other kinds of pants do I wear? I wear a lot of loose-fitting, like tie fisherman's trousers are comfortable. Some things that would be like a looser-fitting men's, I don't really know what they're called, sort of baggier pants for lounging around. I do often wear shorts when I'm in here because it can get a bit hot in the office, even though it's air conditioned. I'm not really sure how to answer that. Rancor, anyway, I can help you a bit more specifically. Welcome aboard. How you doing? Yeah, okay, so for the fashion, we're gonna keep going because personally, I think if we're gonna spend the whole time on Gara, we need to do that. I think I want that. Yeah. Have you tried the Hera Deluxe armor on her? Sure, I'll try it. The Etheria. Whoa, yeah, that's nice, isn't it? Ooh, I can get down with that. That's cool. Yeah. That's badass. Wow. It really looks like part of the skin. That's awesome. Good recommendation. That's really cool. So yeah, we are going to fashion a little bit to start off with because I think it is important to enjoy the look of the frame that we're working on. That's going to require a lot of color work, but that's okay. I really, really like this. Yeah, that's cool. I'm not super high on the chest, but it's not the end of the world. I will figure it out. I do need to quickly manipulate this glass color because it's disgusting. That'll work for now. I wanted like a sea glass fashion, which is fine for now, I guess. Yeah, anyway, I'll keep fiddling with the colors while I catch back up on chat. But yeah, I'm not really sure how to answer the pants question, about what kind of pants I wear specifically. I think pretty normal pants. I don't think I have particularly weird pants feels. Anyway, we'll talk about glass colors. Unfortunately, I actually don't have Gara formed right now, which is maybe something we should do just for fashion. But I don't want to dock the the capacity cost, you know. Yeah, maybe it would be just as well if I'm just gonna use growing power anyway, but maybe I'm not. We'll deal. That's fine. Rancor, you said you mainly do recommendation opinion videos. I mainly do Buildcraft videos. I always do Buildcraft videos. You shouldn't care about my opinion. You should care because I can help you have fun making builds. I'm here to give you some build examples. I do not do recommendation or opinion videos. But if you word build videos that way, I suppose it's similar. You said, I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to modding. Any tips? Sure. I think that watching these is a great way to get into it. Let me just start doing it, but I will say like a few words about that now. I think really you can do a basic approach for most frames that will get the job done, where you just look for what they have that gives you some way to stay alive, some way to do more damage, and then a way to prevent enemies from swarming you. And you'll find that most Warframes have some solutions to those problems. Ash can go invisible to stay alive and trivialize, you don't really need to be tanky. You could just stealth. And then has Seeking Shuriken's augment, and there's also a smoke screen augment, a smoke bomb augment that gives you crit chance, so a couple of damage increases. Atlas Prime is naturally really tanky, has a lot of health, has a lot of armor, so you can build into that to stay alive. And then has punches, do a decent amount of damage. Atlas kind of lacks that damage boost. Banshee has some crowd control to help her stay alive, but lacks that a little bit, that survivability. but has like sonar, for example, as a damage boost. And for Atlas and Banshee here, if you were lacking a damage boost or a way to stay alive, you could use the helmet system to add those things. And from there, I think it becomes quite simple to make every frame just like basically work. Then it becomes a question of getting them to do what you want, getting them to work with the weapons you want, or finding interesting combinations that you enjoy playing or that get the job done better for what you want. You said, I guess I think in a basic sense, I'm used to focus on health, shields, and armor. I now realize you need to mod around the frame and or weapon. You don't. Of course you don't. You don't need to do anything. If you just make the frame stay alive and have enough damage reduction, I think you're fine. I think Gara is a good example of this. I actually already see a comment about Uncle Nene says, at the risk of oversimplifying the Buildcraft discussion, I'm pretty confident saying any helmet consideration for Gara is going to have a difficult time beating Pillage. I kind of disagree. Let's see what you have to say. Pillage gives so much to Gara's kit. Over shields for her damage reduction to scale, armor reduction, and she likes building the stats that Pillage likes. I suppose, I don't think that's untrue of many other Warframes. That's not unique to Gara at all. I don't know what else I'm going to recommend, but it doesn't seem particularly locked into to that. Anyway, but yeah, we'll get into it, and I think that hopefully that will help, Ranker. I hope that will be. I think this frame is a good example of the thing I'm describing. Let's get to a page that doesn't have a helmet ability on it, so we can talk about the basic abilities. So we're gonna do that, and then yeah, we'll discuss, you know, how I'm gonna stay alive, maybe what I'll do for damage or something. I hope that will help, but I want you to keep in mind that, you know, I think a lot of people do things in Warframing games like this because they think they're supposed to or they have to. If you're succeeding at missions and you're having fun, you're doing it right. You're not like supposed to do it some way. I would also strongly recommend just not bothering listening to most other people's advice, because they're just going to tell you what you're supposed to do or the one correct way to do it, which is basically pointless. Anyway, I really hope we can help. I'm going to go over the individual abilities first, but I do this order for a reason. I hope it will help going through things this way. So yeah, no, thank you for asking. I'm happy to try to weave in any questions you have in streams like this. Gara's abilities. Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking to make any builds that I feel like are really useful, have a lot of utility, or might just be like a really unique gameplay experience that does get the job done, but is just also like something different. So Gara. The passive. When you're in bright light, you blind enemies nearby. Yeah, you'll be in bright light a lot of the time. In practice, this just means enemies will be crowd controlled for free around you in unreliable but relatively effective fashion. That's fine, but I don't think we're not going to build around it in any way because you have no idea when it will happen. Shattered Lash. This is a complicated ability to start with. You fire at a projectile, it does like pretty low damage that doesn't scale very well on its own. It does two other important things. So it will shatter, mass vitrify. This does damage, and it also breaks the glass for Splinter Storm to accumulate. So in many ways, this is going to be a tool to shatter other glass. Much like frames like Frost that might use Freeze to clean up a snow globe, I view Shattered Lash as sort of a vehicle by which to use Mass Vitrify and some ways of using Splinter Storm. You can press it to fire a projectile or hold to do a sweep, which is just an interesting option in how you apply it. More about this later, though. Splinter Storm, great ability. This gives you a layer of damage reduction, so you can add armor on top of that, or adaptation on top of that. A great place to start for a Warframe is having some ability that gives you a layer of damage reduction. Of course, that means it affects shields, too. It affects over shields, too. Pretty versatile, so you could go in a few directions with survivability. This does cap, like the damage reduction is going to cap at 90 or 95% for most abilities. For this ability, I don't remember, but we'll find out very quickly in a few minutes. It's probably 90%, which is fine. Like, that's good enough. With a pretty trivial amount of strength, fortunately. Yeah, the other key about this is that it will accumulate damage based on glass shattered around it. So if you use Mass Vitrify and shatter it, this will accumulate a lot of damage. This is going to be pretty key when we talk about Helminth abilities, because that means that these 3 abilities kind of combo together, meaning that if you lose any one of them, there's sort of like a part of the whole that doesn't work as well or at all. This is one of those frames. Speaking of which, Spectro Rage, kind of the odd ability out in this bunch. Not terrible or anything, with a lot of range. This can create enough distractions to be pretty effective, but very high level enemies will mow these down relatively quickly. And personally, I just think it's sort of a process of elimination thing. Is this some kind of garbage fire? No, but is it very, very, very good and necessary to Gara's kit? If you had access to like every Helminth ability? No. So I feel it's sort of the ability out. But it is relatively effective crowd control. This is one of those abilities that especially performs much better when enemies are not at a really high level, because they just won't break the mirrors fast enough. With a lot of range, this can be pretty spicy. So it's not bad. It has a pretty interesting augment that we'll talk about. And Mass Vitrify, this does what it shows. A big thing about this ability is that the range you have really strongly manipulates the size of the thing you're making. That is notable because sometimes you might want to make a really small one to protect like an objective. Other times you might want to make a large one because enemies that are covered by the ability you can see get glassed, and they then take more damage. They get blocked from the outside, you can destroy the walls. It's an ability with a lot going on, but what it's actually useful for is pretty simple. You can defend an objective with a reasonable barrier. The wall is destructible, but it's still something, and you can use it to crowd control enemies. Pretty interesting ability in how it's placed in the environment too, but I don't think I can really describe that. I think we're just gonna have to wait till I show you. Gara's abilities. So yeah, pretty straightforward. There's some tech in here. A couple people are mentioning things from Mass Vitrify. Mass Vitrify also stops capture targets from running away. Ooh, that's going in the notes. That's fairly unique. Not very many things will affect capture targets. Mass Vitrify affects cap targets. I would wonder, I predict that means it will work on disruption dudes. I'm forgetting the name, but you know what I'm trying to say. They run to the thing and then they explode and you lose in disruption. Chat, do you know what that means? Do you know what I'm trying to say? What are those guys called? Demolists. Thank you. I'm just gonna write demolists ? In my notes. Because that would be quite good too. There are a few other ways to immobilize capture targets and demolists, but that's a good thing. Like, that's useful. So yeah, that's quite noteworthy. Pixel also added the wall gains health equal to the enemies it glasses, kind of doing an imitation of Frost's snow globe. If you cover enemies with the glass, it'll be tankier. A big thing about this ability, to close out, is that you are invulnerable while using it. You, Gara, are invulnerable while you're extending this, and you can also cancel it early, Snowman mentions, if you just hit the ability again while it's growing. So you can also use this as a rather effective panic button, and when it says drain per second, that's like what's going on. The ability does drain energy the longer you're expanding it, and that can be pretty long, but you are invulnerable during that time, and you can cancel it. People are saying the Demolist Nullifier Pulse would nullify Mass Vitrify. That's smart. Demolist won't work, probably, because of the Nullifier Pulse. Well done. So, to go back to what Rancor said before, I think the thing that helps the most when building a frame is to just really know what they do, to understand how they work, what they're providing, and to kind of abstract like what benefits do they have. Gara can be very massively oversimplified, but we're here to go in depth, so that's fine. To having a really easy to apply, reliable layer of damage reduction and a pretty weird zone control effect. That's sort of the main draws to action. This ability is pretty unique, and this is a rather versatile way to accumulate damage. Something I neglected to mention here, I'm sorry, is that Splinter Storm can accumulate damage from nearby shattered glass infinitely. You can recast it. You can refresh it by using Mass Vitrify. The duration will be refreshed when you cast Mass Vitrify, and the glass damage it accumulates around it will accumulate forever. So if you just make a bunch of energy and do this and then this with this on over and over and over again, you can accumulate a huge buffer of damage. This is one of the few frames in the game that could kind of do that, like at the beginning of a mission, just set up for a few minutes and have some really powerful thing going on after that. Pretty cool. But when you look at it, quite linear in one sense, right? Like there isn't a whole lot that these abilities on their own do that isn't just like the thing that they do, right? This is a frame where I'm likely to make only one build on the surface. Let's talk about the augments though. Chat, I have a question. Do you think that this part where we're going to talk about the augments should be at a different timestamp or the same timestamp? I think the same, because we're basically just talking about the abilities. Like this is just like Spectro Siphon is like the only reason I would actually use Spectro Rage. All right, we'll just keep it in this one. Yeah, this is weird. When enemies die in the Ring of Mirrors, they have a 50% chance to drop an energy orb. If you make the Ring of Mirrors very large and you envelop a lot of enemies, that's 50% chance is pretty good. If you did like 5 or 6 enemies, that's a lot of energy. There's a couple abilities that can battery a bunch of energy. And I think this is a very good one. I think the problem with this is that the ability it's on is kind of, and then there's a Helminth ability opportunity cost. This might not be bad. It's not amazing. And if it's on an ability that kind of by process of elimination, you're not thrilled to to keep because you want to get rid of it for a Helminth ability, that's an opportunity cost. And you do still have to run an augment. So it's not that this isn't good. Like, it's not that I think this specifically is bad. Actually, because the mirrors are Gara's Helminth ability, this can be an interesting specific energy generation ability for some other Warframes. If a Warframe can easily group enemies together or kill a bunch of enemies in one place some other way, this can be a surprisingly exceptional energy generating ability. With large groups, this will surpass other energy generation. It just requires setup in exchange. So anyway, a pretty interesting augment. I still don't think it's good on Gara in particular, mostly because of an opportunity cost. But yeah, like not something to sleep on for frames that can group enemies up and really like doing that. That it's a lot of energy. If you kill like 6 or 7 enemies in there, like that's crazy. That's a lot more than most other energy generation abilities make. And as long as you have enough mirrors, it's not going to die so fast that you'll be incapable of using that benefit, you know? So anyway, and then Mending Splinters. This makes Splinter Storm heal for each target affected. So the idea is like, I've always been confused about the wording of this one. It's relatively new too. Does this mean every target you have Splinter Storm cast on, they all heal for 15 seconds per target? This could mean like 4 different things. Like, what does this do? We have, so it should scale with strength. That's something to check really quick. I'm sure it does. It does. 15 health per second is okay. 30 health per second is pretty respectable health regen. Yeah, like that's fine. Exactly when this does that is not entirely clear. Is this for every enemy you are touching, damaging with Splinter Storm? That kind of sounds like what it would be. Rather than just like everyone who has it heals for a static 15 health per second. The more I think about this, the more there are even more things this could possibly mean. This combination of English words does not in any way specify the function of this ability. So we're going to have to go test it right now. That, like, it could, there's a few things that it could mean, but probably it doesn't. But there are at least 3 different things that it could easily be what that ability does, and I have no idea which one it is. So let's just go check. That's, yeah, no. I always thought it meant for every enemy being attacked by splinters at that moment, heal X, which would be nearly useless. Well, I guess so, but in that case, it's like, it actually is a lot of healing. You just need to go near a group of enemies, you know? Mending Splinters is a Warframe augment mod for Gara's Splinter Storm that causes it to heal friendly targets it's applied to, with the healing being increased for every target, friendly or not, affected by Splinter Storm for a short time. So, okay, hold on. We're just gonna have to check. I'm gonna build a bunch of health on Gara to just have that. I don't know why I can't just type health. Some HP. Gladiator Resolve, sure. There's a lot of health mods in Warframe. When did that happen? Dude. And also this that I don't have on. What? When did this happen? Anyway, I mean, that's bad, but like, it's interesting. Huh. Who knew? I didn't. I need to take off my companion because it will solo the entire group of enemies. Can you cast Splinter Storm on enemies? Yep. Okay, so I'm gonna let them do some damage to me. Crack into my health, please. Could you? Oh my goodness. Okay, I'll pick enemies with guns. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm gonna go down here too. Gunny boys, please. Gunny girls. Okay, question number 1. Does it provide static healing? The answer is yes. So if it's just on you, it heals for that amount. Now, does it heal for more when I'm near enemies? Is that how that works? Looks like no, so it heals you faster when it's on multiple targets? I guess? But it's not on me now. Let's see. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, so there we go. I got it. Yes, so this augment, this is an augment in Warframe that when it says for each target affected, it means for each target you have cast Splinter Storm on, and then they all get that rate of healing per second. So the more you cast that on, the more everyone heals. That's cool. Nice. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's like when enemies are around. Wiki seems to think it's 15 flat. It is, as far as I just saw, incorrect. You do seem to heal faster if you're on, if it's affecting multiple targets, but that I'll check one more time if you like. I could be seeing that wrong. This is why I hate this kind of thing in Warframe. This is the worst part of Warframe. It should be extremely easy to just write a few more words and make it clear. I understand that it's a confusing game with a lot of components, but for real, I just feel like every time something comes up, it's like you have the words describing it don't tell you anything about what it does. Yeah, so you can quite clearly see in that example. I know I keep jumping my thing up there, but I have to manage moving the camera around. Give me a break, folks. You do gain more health for other enemies that have Splinter Storm on them. If you cast this on multiple targets, you heal for more. If the wiki says that doesn't happen, the wiki is wrong. That is why we sometimes have to test these things. Does it heal everyone for more? Hard to say. It sounds like it should, now that we've narrowed down what it does. I don't know. This is by far my least favorite thing I do for work. We're not going to do it anymore, but that's how it works. It does heal you, even if you're not like hurting anybody with the shards, which is great. It's affected by strength, which is great. If you cast it on more targets, you heal more, which is also great. So good stuff. That's effective. Keep in mind, of course, that they all have their own durations, and the duration is only moderate. You can refresh splinters with whip too, right? You're talking about Shattered Lash? Can you? No, I think it's only with this. Yeah, only with Vitrify, I believe. But I think Mass Vitrify refreshes everyone's as long as they get touched by it. Dragoon, thank you for the 10 gift subs. Thank you very much. How you doing today? Welcome back. I know you've been here. What's going on? Any particular occasion? Really appreciate it. 117 gift subs. What a legend. Anyway, I'm done with my salty rampage about how nothing in Warframe explains what it does. Let's talk about builds now, shall we? And I want to scroll back up on chat because there was a lot of good stuff that we didn't get to in our salt-infused pursuit of truth. Truth is one of the saltiest things to pursue, after all. Enemies take more damage from all sources when Splinters is on them. Oh yeah, that's a part of this ability I didn't mention. The damage multiplier part at the very bottom, that says 1.35x at base. I'm sure it's affected by strength. And that's referring to if you put the splinters on enemies, you're giving them like a damage vulnerability debuff. Thank you for adding that, Nene. I didn't mention that before. Cool. Congrats to all the people that got gifted a sub. Dragoon, very generous. Thank you very much. Let me scroll back up a little bit and hear what people had to say about builds. But yeah, I mean, the way I usually approach this is to start checking boxes. You know, what is the value, every piece of value I can think of getting out of Gara, and can we fit that all on one build? Okay, Splinter Storm. The damage reduction is nice. I'd like to cap it. What does it cap at? 90%. Okay, so not very much strength. If I ran just Intensify, that caps it. So if I were to run the Umbral mods, that immediately caps it. I could even run some range and I would probably still easily cap it. Augur, you could do math to figure out exactly what will cap it. Augur Secrets almost caps it. With 29% strength. If somebody else could do math to find that out, thank you. So you very little strength will cap the damage reduction. So that's pretty easy. The accumulating glass isn't affected by anything. Not that it particularly should be, but I don't think it is it? Just how often you can do it, which suggests efficiency. If you use Mass Vitrify and shatter it with Shattered Lash more, you're going to get more glass in Splinter Storm, so that's good. I personally think Duration has a pretty massive quality of life thing for Gara, because if this goes down and you have a lot of glass in it, you lose like potentially dozens of minutes of building up damage. If you want to do that. So I'm going to build some Duration. We're already starting to piece together like what's going to be on here. Then another thing to decide is what are we going to use as our method of health, like raw survivability. Earlier we were talking to Rancor, who mentioned how they often go to frames and they're thinking about health, shields, and armor. And I think a big thing is that it's almost always pointless to build health and shields. You should pick one. And a lot of the time building shields is also not very effective. It's better to just get over shields. Gara Prime has a bit better base health, so it's not uninteresting to me to maybe build Umbral mods. Now, the Intensify is a bit excessive. We might run overextended later, so that's a thing to think about. It would make the glass affect a larger area, so that's something. I'll talk about Mass Vitrify, though, later. So that's pretty good base health. Now, Gara's armor at base is not great. It will be okay with Umbral Fiber. Let's look at how much damage reduction that is. 64%. I think you could go Guardian. I think you can just use Arcane Guardian. That's a much more substantial armor increase. And I think that on balance, Umbral Fiber increasing the strength and health you get doesn't actually do that much in this case. So maybe I'll go with this for now. We can always change it later, but it's a place to get started. People are saying that the way you increase the damage you shatter into Splinter Storm is using Shattered Lash melee mods. Right. Yes, this is affected by melee mods in some odd way. Some of you might know this is actually a pet complaint of mine as well about Warframe. I've been complaining a lot. I was excited to do Gara. You know that? I want you to know that. I was excited to talk about Gara. I'm complaining because I like this game and these parts of it are bad for, I think, no reason. I feel like they should care about these parts of the game more. They're so messy and they could be cleaned up, and the game is otherwise so great. That is why. Okay? Anyway. There are some abilities in Warframe that act like a melee weapon. They take the mods off your melee weapon. They don't say they do, and they don't say what stats they have, and they don't take all mods off your melee weapon. Do you see why this would be a bit annoying? Additionally, we have weapons in Warframe that are a Warframe power that you mod separately and you can see their stats, exalted weapons. Why can't these just also, anyway? And to be fair, years ago, in discussions with other players, one of our developers, Pablo, did mention that he was interested in doing that. So for what it's worth, I get it if they haven't gotten to it, but for real, like, I hate this part of the game. It's so frustrating to discuss. Like, the whole stream will be taken up just by discussing that. So humor me, okay, chat? Suffice to say, you obviously just make a stat stick for this if you want to increase that damage. Let's not waste the limited time we have talking about, I'm sure there's just like a build that is the most mathematical damage on a stat stick for this. That's not worth our time. Like, you should do that if you're interested in it, but it's not valuable for us to spend our time now talking about that. Is that okay? For real, if you want to talk about that, that's okay. I'm just curious. Oh, yeah. Uncle Nene, you mentioned Molt Efficiency instead of Arcane Guardian. I want both, I think, if I'm going to tank with health. But there is a question about that. We would want to look at what you would do to tank with shields. Well, you could build shields. I reckon it's really not that much, and you wouldn't heal them. I think mending splinters would be nice quality of life. Healing mostly functioning to give you multitasking. You don't have to stop playing the mission and killing enemies to heal yourself back up with your operator. So I don't think that this is pointless, even though you always can heal yourself. But it's true that this is a modest amount of space on the build. And so we should look at what you would do if you survived with shields. You probably use over shields. This gets back to the Uncle Nene comment before. It's immediately clear that they're not really directly comparable because you're trading some mod space, some arcane space for probably a helmet ability, probably indeed pillage. And that would pretty efficiently give you a lot of overshields. I think Gara, like many frames, would appreciate reducing enemy armor as well. I agree. That's true, but ultimately it's a choice. And so we need to see what else is on the build to know what the opportunity cost of these mod slots is. If I end up with a build where I don't really care about spending a few slots on this, there are benefits to doing it this way. We would free up a helmet ability, but we also have to know what helmet abilities we'd want. This is the essence of why I think it's interesting to discuss. So I absolutely disagree that it is at least immediately clear that pillage makes the helmet ability discussion moot. And I hope it makes sense why, Uncle Nene. But that is a really interesting place to start, again, to think about, okay, like we have a way you could survive, but there's also another way that doesn't consume comparable resources, but they both consume valuable resources. Which one, you know? I do think pillage is an elegant solution here, but I think giving the Equinox example, we wanted that build space, you know? Whereas here, again, what must be shown is that we actually really do want that build space. Again, what's interesting about Gara is that because we have Splinter Storm as a layer of damage reduction, we can kind of use health or shields. Like, this affects both, so it's okay to pick one or the other. And then, of course, they have pretty different apples to oranges costs on the build. They take different kinds of space. So we have to make more of the build to know for sure. That's how I'm going to approach it. Does that make sense? Let's pick an aura just to get capacity. With what, though? I don't know. So we're just going to put something on. We'll do combat discipline, I guess. Why? No. Aerodynamic, just the placeholder. Do we have capacity now? Excellent. We have the cap damage reduction. What else do we want? Steel charge affects the scaling of her first ability. Okay, sure, yeah. As placeholders go, I said I wanted to not get bogged down in that, so leaving this on is not a bad way to go. Fair enough. Yeah, and with that, this is why I was interested in entertaining the health thing, because I feel like getting at least the basic stuff done is quite simple on Gara. It's pretty easy to again kind of check the boxes for the basic utility I might want. And then we can add some duration. That would be comfortable. How long do we have? 45 seconds. Okay, on Splinter Storm. This is a surprisingly busy stream, folks. I'm happy you're excited to talk about Gara stuff. Chat has been popping off this stream, which is interesting. I wonder why in particular. Maybe because Gara is a Warframe that a lot of other creators talk about, so people are coming in with prior thoughts about Gara. Is that a thing? Not that that's bad, just curious. Right, continuing to catch back up on chat though. I might be jumping ahead here, but I think Gara gets particularly hurt by radiation procs because letting Splinter Storm run out could potentially set your damage back so far after you've set it up, or instantly kill your squad mates. Sure, I'm gonna write radiation immunity in my notes, and we'll come back to it when, you know, if it comes up naturally, or if not, we'll come back to it. But yeah, Bastards, you said, a question you have to clarify first, especially with Gara, how do you want to play her? But I don't think that's much of a question with Gara. What I was mentioning before is that, you know, if you try to extract all the frame's value, I just think that Gara is a Warframe that doesn't like do a wide enough variety of things that there's like you have Splinter Storm, and then you can use Mass Vitrify, and you're probably gonna incidentally be shattering it, which means you'll accumulate damage in Splinter Storm. And that's sort of like the Gara thing. There really aren't other things in the kit that I can think of. If there are other playstyles you have in mind, this is a Warframe where I don't perceive there as being multiple different ways to play them. I would love to hear about that. So by all means, absolutely. Audio Forces, thank you for gifting 5 tier 1 subs to Nick James Bennett, Techo, Emo Nemo, and Feral. Some familiar names and some new names. Welcome back, folks, or welcome aboard. And Audio Forces, thank you for the gift subs. 125 gift subs. Ooh, subs incoming, get down. That's what we need that damage reduction for. That's right. Thank you very much. Speaking of the radiation thing, guess what? Pillage purges radiation. That is a very, very clean solution. I'm not going to argue with that. Pillage does purge status effects. Anyway, again, but it's still a benefit to weigh against other benefits. I'm sure you don't want there to be no choices for the frame, right? So we're still going to leave a choice open because it clearly has some benefits. It consumes different resources. But what else? I don't know. So efficiency, I guess I would want efficiency. Doesn't need to be like an ungodly amount of efficiency, but some would be nice. Of course, we're out of space, but what are you going to do? That's just because I have an unformed Gara. 52 energy. Herm. Yeah, that might be fine. This costs 35. Yeah, and then range, of course, is something I want. So we'll add Cunning Drift. Again, because I haven't formed my Gara, we're going to have some things be placeholders to some extent. Natural Talent might help you feel like you can do things that aren't holding down a casting button. Wrecked. Yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable point. I think as placeholders, I might just use Normal Intensify and Vitality here so that we have enough space to like actually put mods on. Yeah. Natural Talent. So we'll fill that out, totally. I want to put on stretch as well because I want to talk about the range of mass vitrify. Going back to what Bastard said about different playstyles, I think a big thing is that there is a question about mass vitrify being big or small. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. The whole thing about, you know, you could defend an objective quite precisely by making a small ring of glass. But with a decent amount of range, you can see this isn't huge. Like, this is a pretty cozy size for some objectives. You don't want it to be too small. But then what if you do this? So we'll see how, like, what if you want it big? How big is it? Pretty big. So I don't know. I think this is a good amount of range. It feels like you can kind of get, like, it's still small enough. That kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I was a little worried about, you know, I really like excavation missions where you make a really skinny mass vitrify around the little excavation probe. But I think that you can mostly accomplish the benefits of that even with like an okay amount of range. What about Splinter Storm? My personal experience is having big range on Splinter Storm feels pretty sweet. And this is not... It's not terrible range, right? But like, you know, it's a little small. Maybe it'd be easier if I showed you it hitting enemies. So you can see, like there, that enemy is getting hurt and pushed away very gently. So you do have to be close to enemies for Splinter Storm to hit them. Too much range and nullifiers just spawn right on you. Interesting. If they touch any part of Splinter Storm, do you lose all the damage? That's a problem. Yike. I don't know if I've experienced that. That's an issue. Going back to I asked Bastards if they felt like there were like different ways to play Gara. You said, I feel like if you don't lean into the splinters, they don't do much at higher levels. I perceive her more like Equinox, who's rewarding for focusing one part of her kit. Although in case of Gara, you still have to use all the parts. But how I feel is that focusing on some of the parts of Gara's kit doesn't require enough space to force you not to just focus on the other parts too. Like, you are rewarded for focusing on one part, but I feel like it's mostly just Splinter Storm that is actually space consuming to focus on. And the other parts you can get the benefit out of for very little. I don't know. Or I guess I disagree. I don't really feel like there is a lot that you need to focus on. Shattered Lash becomes a tool for shattering your vitrify to accumulate glass in Splinter Storm. And it sounds like melee damage mods increase this, but that doesn't take up space that would have benefited these abilities. And likewise, I think while Splinter Storm you can add a lot of stuff, I'm not sure Mass Vitrify is not getting what it needs from those things, you know? I don't know, that's what I think. So this is an okay shell. I wanted to compare natural talent really quickly so people can decide if they want to use it. There can be a good amount of recasting with Gara, which means doing that pretty quickly. You know, you might think like, all right, each of those wasn't that much faster, but altogether, I think that was kind of a lot. Let me show you without the speed increase. You gotta decide for yourself, you know? Anyway, so yeah, like we have the duration. We have some duration. I would want to add more if I had the mod space. Before I had Constitution and Augur Message as well. Again, I just have limited modding space because I'm informed by Gara. But I do want some duration. I don't think you have to go crazy with Constitution as well on here. You have 45 seconds, which I think is sort of enough. That's the kind of thing that's going to be a playstyle issue. Because Augur Message and Constitution don't give you that much, it is beneficial if you can drop them. So that's something to think about. You do gain something by freeing that space up. Yeah, people recommended Steel Charge because it makes Shattered Lash damage higher, which makes the Splinter Storm damage higher. That's clever. Probably a very common recommendation. Um, and then I think the question is Helminth abilities. So yeah, I mean, I think I think what's left basically is to think about what Helminth ability you want. I want to go back to the thing about pillage actually, since it's come up more. Pillage is obviously very good on most frames, and that's one good reason to not bother discussing it every single time. I assure you that one benefit of me remaking these as videos for the Zanypants channel is that people would get sick very quickly of hearing redundant discussion about pillage. I do think this is a frame that could be a good example of like, no, it's really good here though, you know, for sure. But it's always good to recommend the options. That's why people watch my videos. So I hope you can understand that, you know, as you go on and on about how good pillage is, it's not that I disagree with you, but it's like you said, actually, Uncle Nene, it's kind of true everywhere. Somebody mentioned the duration being long. Now, pillage, you can reactivate it to pull it back in, right? So that doesn't make it bad. It just doesn't particularly make it better, right? You can reactivate pillage to end it early, can't you? I'm not going crazy about that. Anyway, I wanted to address that because that's important. Yeah, so I think the question remains, you know, I had said I don't think Gara is going to be too hungry for mod space, which would be my argument against like just immediately going pillage, because you save mostly mod space that I suggested perhaps you don't need. And I feel like that, having looked at the mods so far. Now, I think the question, though, is, you know, you could add a lot with a Helminth ability, so maybe we could think about what we'd add. That's the real thing we need to discuss if we're going to talk about, like, you want to not pick pillage? Like, what do you get instead? What do you get instead? I saw somebody mention Elemental Ward. Yes. Vampire, I think, right? But anyway, Scroll of Wisdom, I wanted to address the concern about duration. Duration isn't a problem for pillage because you can recast it to return it to you. Elemental Ward. Why Elemental Ward? That's interesting. You could get a bunch of health with it. You could get armor with it, I suppose. I'm not very excited about those things. Toxin is great, always, I think. Always, I think. I don't know. And you could keep Spectre Rage, Spectre Siphon for energy, but in that case, you know, you could add Dispensary or any number of things. I don't think this is a particularly energy hungry build. I don't know. Maybe. We're going to have to play it a bit and find out, but Vampire, I might be wrong. Let me scroll back up. Who was talking about adding Elemental Ward? Airmentor Ward. Can't find it. I'm sorry. Anyway, I don't know. There's not a lot here I'm that excited about. Um, I I think this Elemental Ward is a very generally good Helminth ability in my opinion, but beyond like Heat Elemental Ward or Cold Elemental Ward would make you tankier if you wanted that. I don't know. I've never really had that much of a problem with that with Gara. I feel like that's one of her strong points. But it's certainly a thing you could do. Toxin Elemental Ward is always pretty good as long as you use weapons that care about the holster speed. You know, one thing that came up earlier, Uncle Nene and a few other people were mentioning the glassing enemies, and then you get really easy headshots. Gara is really good at enabling headshot weapons, which we'll talk about a little later. And so that's something to consider. Maybe that doesn't have like the most synergy with holster speed, or maybe it does. I don't know. pulling groups of enemies together is interesting because then you could clump them and then glass over them. If you were going to do that, I'm kind of interested in using Ensnare because they'll be standing up. The different enemies that clump enemies up are not very different from each other, but they are a little different. And Ensnare has the unique property of the enemies standing up when they get grouped together. So if you plan to headshot them, this can be kind of better because they're not all in a blob. That's interesting. To make the defense wall tankier too, because Pixel mentioned earlier, if you glass enemies, your wall gets tankier as well. That's clever. I can get behind that. That's cool. Ensnare or some other pulling ability, other grouping ability to glass enemies all at once and make a tankier wall at the same time. Yeah, cool. So again, the main thing we're doing here is trying to demonstrate what the opportunity cost of taking pillage here is. And again, it's a good option, of course, but what could you get instead if you wanted to? Again, my demonstration is that I just don't believe it's necessary. I feel like you can survive adequately without it, which therefore, it bears the burden of like, what helmet ability do you give up for just surviving like you could without pillage? It's a very good way to do that, but I just don't think you really need that. Can we test whether ragdolled enemies are still glassed? That's a reasonable idea. Yeah, I sometimes Ensnare like doesn't it weirdly won't work with some enemies. I would like to save resources testing that, and I'm kind of into Ensnare, so I think I'm gonna test Ensnare first if that's okay with you, and then I can add like some other Coil Horizon or something to test as well. If people are worried about like, okay, that's cool, I don't want to use Ensnare though, what, how about Larva, right? For the sake of my poor helmet resources, I hope you're all okay with me limiting it to trying one other ability out. But yeah, no, we should try that. Because sometimes, like when enemies are stuck in Strangledome, sometimes stuff doesn't work on them. So that'd be something I'd want to know. Now, I like the Ensnare idea. The idea of sucking the enemies in as a group to make your defensive barrier tankier is appealing, I think. We kind of have the resources for Ensnare as well. We have moderate range and moderate duration, which is what I'd want on Ensnare. You don't really need the duration, but it's not bad. The big thing about duration on Ensnare is this might be wrong. I thought that also affected the propagation delay. It like happens faster. Anyway, but there are trade-offs, of course. Ensnare requires that you have an initial enemy to suck the enemies in from. That's an issue I've found, like, in a lot of situations that really isn't a big deal. If enemies are never near the objective, you do not need to make a strong wall around the objective. So personally, I don't think that really matters, but it's a playstyle thing at the end of the day. So absolutely, like, that's something to note. The reason we talk about these is so you can choose based on the different strengths and weaknesses. Well, anyway, we're just testing it out, so we'll go into some whatever mission. Not important that it be the perfect mission where I get a bunch of stuff done. That's on Tuesday. Oof. Cool. Okay, yes, so I'm just gonna pad for the sake of testing. We're gonna go yoink. And we're gonna go yoink. Okay, Ensnare will glass, as you might expect, really. And then we can try something else. And I think that if you wanted to use it to buff up the wall, I would be keenest to test something that has the longest. I think you want range, basically. The various grouping abilities have various benefits, but I think that if our goal is to group them like on the objective and then glass them to make a tanky wall, if that's what you want, I hope you'll all accept if I test the ability with the biggest range. So we get 8 meters, Airburst has 8 meters, and Coil Horizon has 12 meters, but is only very brief. This might be a uniquely good situation for Coil Horizon, right? Like, if this does work with glassing, I'll test this. This could be a uniquely good time for Coil Horizon, because the main drawback of this ability is it doesn't group them for very long, like at all. I mean, they'll die quickly, but this groups them for like only a moment, right? But that would be all you would need. Cool, okay. Yeah, let's give it a shot. That's convincing to me. Does some okay damage too. Again, it doesn't really scale, but it's something. Let's give it a shot. Shoy. Shoy. Great. Sure. I was trying to say. Soy. Oh, wait, no, this is going to kill them immediately. Steel Path. Coil also needs line of sight and has terrain issues. Yeah, okay. I mean, they're all going to have their own strengths and weaknesses. I didn't swap to the loadout with Coil Horizon. Classic. Dragoon talked about reasons for Elemental Ward, which I wanted to get back to. Yatagami, thank you. An affinity booster. So kind. You've gifted me quite a few of those now. And a resource booster as well. Thank you. Yatagami, that's real thoughtful. You've done that a few times now. We will use them for good and not for evil. Evil. In fact, we can do a former right now. There's really not a reason not to. I don't see myself using something other than Steel Charge. How many Aura Forma do I have? 1. Maybe I'll just format it to a V. Yeah, like, you could, there's good V mods. It's fine. I'm just gonna do that for this Warframe. It's fine. We're just gonna do that. Pow. And Constitution will just barely not fit if it's rank 3. Awkward. That'll be fine for now. Well, that helps a lot. Look at how much more space we have. We'll talk about weapons in a minute. Did I still fail to swap loadouts? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Okay. We're literally just going to duplicate this here. Can you do that automatically in some way? Probably not, right? Actions. Get that off as soon as possible. Yeah, no, let's just remake the build. Link build to yourself in chat. You can copy with the button at the top, can you? Oh yeah, you can link it with the button and then just copy paste it. Cool. That's helpful, thank you. A really cool feature. I just like it's sort of weirdly hacky in my opinion, but not in a bad way. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so again, reset, there was some tomfoolery there. Mentally resetting. What we're testing is whether grouping enemies would be good, because when you use Mass Vitrify, the wall is tankier for enemies that are glassed. So grouping enemies together is kind of good with Mass Vitrify that way. It's good anyway, but it's a little better on Gara. Who needs an excuse to use one of those abilities? Not me, right? What we're checking is whether it works with all of them. Like, Ensnare works, but what if they get ragdolled? Sometimes that makes some abilities behave kind of funny in that case. GG! Nice. Works. So yeah, if you want that, yeah, I'm fairly convinced actually. You know, it's not ideal that they're not standing up, but I feel like the mass vitrify, but they're standing up thing, um, yeah, is like I might use mass vitrify just on a group of enemies that were really tanky, uh, and then headshot them. If I'm gonna defend the objective, I'd probably be okay with just killing a cluster of enemies. So I think it's fine. I think the idea that Ensnare makes them be standing up when they're glassed is a pretty minor, like, taste benefit. Just like I was saying before that I think that Coil Horizon not requiring one enemy as a target is also a pretty minor benefit. If enemies are not near the objective, you don't need a tanky wall around the objective. But in any case, they're both minor quality of life-based benefits, so I don't think there's anything wrong with just picking the one you want. For what it's worth, they both have similar radius as well. This is 10 meters, and Coil Horizon is 12. Yeah, this is kind of uniquely good here. Like, it only pulls them together for a second, but that's kind of... You're just going to glass them anyway, so it's fine. Cool, sure. And I think you might agree, a relatively robust benefit. If you were to survive with shields instead, you'd use Pillage instead of Coil Horizon, you lose Coil Horizon. And you free up Vitality and Mending Splinters, but I just don't think that you free them up for much. Like, I don't feel like you gain a lot in that space. I guess you could build Strength. You could absolutely build Strength. I have pretty low Strength here. Although ideally this build will use Umbral Intensify and Umbral Vitality, so it will be a touch higher. But that's true. Like, you would get substantially more Strength by doing that. That's fair. I don't know. Like, I think I'd want to play it this way and then try and swap it if I felt like that was inadequate. Another thing that I meant to get back to was that folks were saying that that your armor, Gara's armor, modifies mass vitrify. Does that work with Arcane Guardian? Because if it doesn't, I might consider adding Umbral Fiber, and that would be another point in favor of surviving with health. Anyway, Uncle Nate, I'm happy you mentioned at the beginning of the stream that there are all these unique benefits to Pillage in this situation. Pillage is a bit better than it is always pretty good here, but surviving with health also has some significant benefits. And I do think that, again, Pillage is fairly beneficial on a lot of frames. I would rather recommend Pillage more highly on a frame that has less options. Ah, yes, you gotta get one of these or it's not like a real stream. Anyway, just gonna ban someone real quick. There we go. Yes, anyway. I'm gonna catch up on chat a little bit, but we've kind of got a blueprint. Now I didn't end up going for overshields, which makes Molt efficiency less good. That is another kind of quiet cost. Molt efficiency would be better, more consistent, if we were using overshields to stay alive. And some duration is quite good here. This is pretty powerful. Now, I feel like because we have an Augur mod in here, and this build does recast quite frequently, this is still pretty good. Like, that's... I don't think you shouldn't use this just because we're not using Pillage, but Pillage would definitely make it better, right? So that is another benefit. Again, I think it's interesting how you can compare the benefits of the two. I'm actually going to write, when this becomes a video, I think it'd be cool to include that. Surviving with health. The benefits are armor effects, mass, vitrify, wall strength. Mending splinters is good. I mean, it's fine. Gain Coil Horizon to group enemies for stronger wall. Basically just makes wall stronger. And you get a grouping ability. Shields. Can remove radiation status effects. Just Wicked Strong removes some enemy armor. Better with Molt efficiency, which is good here. whether you even need to devote build space to survivability. I could be wrong here, but since Shatterstorm and Adaptation stack, I found that using something like Brief Respite and Augur mods on a frame that recasts relatively frequently can make you tanky enough on its own. Absolutely, there is a question about, like, if you generate enough shields and overshields and you run Adaptation for more shield damage reduction, you may be durable enough that you don't really need the shields. Yeah, like Taxon, for example. I think that that more applies in general, but frames that have a layer of shield damage reduction, it is always worth considering. Like, you may or may not actually need other survivability. In my experience, you want to run pretty extreme shield generation in that case, but that's the thing. But yeah, a perfectly reasonable thing to add. But personally, I feel like because this is a case where the armor is arguably desirable anyway, I feel like that's, I don't know, it's not so bad. I also have a personal bias here. I am someone who feels a touch anxious about destructible ways of defending objectives, because in my mind it's like, well, I can't leave. I still have to babysit it, which is not to say it's not useful. But personally, I'm attracted to the idea of making Mass Vitrify tanky. I don't know if it's come across that way, but like to me, that's very appealing. It feels like a point of failure in the loadout, and making it quite tanky just sounds good. I don't know. So I'm sort of keen on having armor anyway because of that. But absolutely, like depending on your preference, you could dump the survivability mods and pillage, and rely more on like augur stuff, and you could add brief respite. So good stuff. Infested Ravager, welcome aboard. You came at a good time. We were kind of just winding down the first draft of the core build that we were going to use for Gara. I don't think Gara has a lot else to do with other builds. I feel like mostly the loop of shattering Mass Vitrifies into Splinter Storm, and then you have that damage reduction as well, is sort of what Gara does, and it's pretty interconnected. We added Coil Horizon to pull enemies together. This is good because grouping enemies together is good in Warframe, but also because Mass Vitrify gets tankier, the wall gets tankier. For every enemy it glasses, so you can pull enemies together and then glass them all for a tankier wall. It's kind of nice. That's also affected by armor, so we've built to survive with health and armor, which is fairly efficient with mending splinters too. You get some kind of auto healing. And then we added a healthy amount of duration. I didn't want to make the range negative or invest too much in it, but we do have molt efficiency as well to increase that further. And with an augur mod, we should have shields pretty frequently. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to playing it. Let's talk about weapons though. So one thing that came up earlier is that Mass Vitrify makes headshots rather trivial. So if you have a weapon that benefits a lot from headshots, this ability, it doesn't get a whole lot easier than using this ability with a decent amount of range. I personally am attracted to the idea of using a sniper rifle with energy. Nah, I don't know what it's called. Sharpshooter. Sharpshooter. I'm not sure what sniper rifle. Let's pull that up though, just so people can like, yeah, maybe not everyone is familiar. It's not amazing, but it is like a source of energy regen, and if I'm not going to use anything else anyway, it's like, why not? Comarangs? Is it sharpshooter? Yes, okay. On a headshot kill, you get 15 energy. Yeah, like, it's no frills, but it's not bad. Again, I'm not sure what sniper rifle. It would be a little bit preferency, but we might be able to come up with something with some synergy. I think this is nice. I like this because the idea would be like, if you're doing your loop, you're kind of looping Splinter Storm, Mass Vitrify to refresh it, and then Shattered Lash to shatter more damage into your Splinter Storm. As you're doing that, when you Mass Vitrify, you might momentarily stop and think, I'm out of energy, and then just quickly get some headshots on glassed enemies, headshot kills. And glassing enemies, of course, gives them damage vulnerability. So that's nice. It's cozy, why not? There are a couple of very good headshot-focused secondaries, which leads me to something of a quip. I don't really want both of the weapons to be like headshot-happy, basically sniper rifles. But again, there are really good secondaries, Nell Prime and the Lightum as well. The Lightum is the secondary Incarnon weapon. The thing where you get headshots and then charge up the ammo to make it an auto weapon. That and Nell Prime, both very good. I've actually also been pretty high on Magnus Prime. Some people were talking some trash about this. What did Magnus Prime ever do to you, huh? Talking shit about this excellent weapon. It's not that amazing, but if you're not familiar, it has a chance to maximize ammo efficiency, so you could just like rapid fire headshots. But it's silly here. But really, it would be something like Nell, or I don't have Nell Prime yet, or like the Lightum. To take advantage of headshots. Of course, you could run these and still run a sniper rifle. I just don't love having two weapons like that. You could deploy your heavy weapon, I guess. You could focus on melee, I guess. I don't know. So that's a thought. It's a bit preferency, but the thing I'm here for is to look for, are there any weapons that are particularly synergistic there? Are there any sniper rifles that are like a little bit better with sharpshooter or better with Gara and can use sharpshooter? I like the idea that, like Feather, you said, the Lightum has the benefit of not always being a headshot-focused weapon, only sometimes being a headshot weapon when you need to recharge it, which, yeah, I like. And then you don't have to be headshotting with your recharge, sharpshooter sniper rifle. I think the Lightum is an elegant fit here. That's rad. I can get down with that. Whoa. Oh boy. All right. So, gifted subs don't show up on my chat overlay, so I can still read what you said, even though Dragoon just gifted 25 gift subs. Thank you very much. To a lot of people, everybody in the stream probably has one now. So congratulations. Welcome aboard. I know there's some of you, Infested Ravager, new here. People are calling you Infested Revenger. That seems like a fairly bad misread. Anyway, welcome. Congrats on almost certainly getting a gifted a sub. I would hope anyway, with how many have been going around. Anywho, and there have been plenty of other new people as well. I wanted to catch up on a few things. I saw some discussion about... We were talking about Elemental Ward earlier. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything I wanted to discuss about that, because I thought it was neat. And I also wanted to read what Bastards was saying about their gameplay loop here. Oh yeah, we also have to talk about companions. In fact, let's do that. So like headshot weapons, and then a little bit earlier I asked you all for a bit of a favor. You can use a melee weapon with mods optimized for Shattered Lash to make Splinter Storm grow more damage. But that's been covered extensively elsewhere on the internet, and it's not like you're just going to put those mods on and it will be the most damage for this. It's not worth this limited time we have for a frame that has led to a pretty complicated stream so far. We've gotten a lot of good stuff done. That's been covered a lot elsewhere. Let's not spend time just rehashing the very thoroughly done by others what you would build on a melee weapon for Shattered Lash. Needless to say, you could just have your melee weapon be a stat stick for Shattered Lash. If you are going to do that, I reckon maybe something with some utility would be nice. Thinking about the thing about radiation earlier, Vampire, I think, mentioned Gara is like sort of humorously vulnerable to radiation status effects for a few reasons, but one of them is that your Splinter Storm will immediately one-shot all of your squad mates, which is a yikes. So something that mitigates status effects would be nice. I forget if Sancti Magister actually makes them last longer. Less time, though. Or does it just make you take less damage from them? I think it just makes you take less damage from them. And the mod that makes them last less time would be Rapid Resilience. Indeed. There is also, of course, an arcane that for your Warframe that makes you immune to radiation. It seems a bit, pardon the pun, nuclear as a solution for this loadout. I I don't know. I feel like the once in a blue moon that you get radiated and irradiated, and your party dies. Like me, I'm okay with that. It's just something to mention. Again, if you were to use pillage, like we talked about a lot before, that gets rid of that. I don't know, man. Like I'm fine with the radiation thing, but it's a good point. Like I just personally, I'm just not gonna do anything about that. Maybe that makes me a scoundrel, but go figure. Focus. So one thing I wanted to mention was that you could use Madurai to get power transfer, which gives you the casting speed we talked about before. This is helpful because you're casting that loop of Splinter Storm, mostly Mass Vitrify and Shattered Lash, a lot. You know that's happening very frequently, and so speeding it up has a pretty disproportionate event. You'll really feel it. So if you're interested in that, I think Madurai is a reasonable choice here. You do get some strength, which I don't know if like particularly benefits you here. Void Fuel is fine. You get weapon efficiency, which is good for those like headshot type weapons. That actually is a pretty good fit, huh? And Void Strike is always fine. You know, like Madurai is good. I heard. So I reckon that's not a bad choice. Again, you might be kind of energy hungry. You could go Xeneric. I don't know how bad that is. Again, you can run a sniper rifle that recharges the energy. I feel like I had something that I was keen on using sharpshooter on. Oh, wait. Isn't this big bongo headshot damage? Yes. Scoped headshots increase lethality. Thank you, Warframe description. Very cool. But like, what does it do? The Spore fix. This is what the wiki is good for. I just don't remember what effect that has. We're almost all the way through all the gifted subs. Thank you very much, Dragoon. They're still going. Just comprehending. But what does the headshot part do? Anyway, this is one of those where when you get a headshot, the barb explodes. And it has weird stats. That's the other thing I remember. The crit multiplier is really good. The status is really high. The crit chance, like, is not a real number. Sporthix, what are you doing? There's a lot of ways to enable crits, but like, is that anyway? This is definitely like a bit of an awkward one. You might want to enable it a little. I don't know. Like, surely there's a sniper rifle that is like a cozy fit with sharpshooter in some particular way. I think I was thinking about I cannot remember the name of this weapon, Vectus Prime. But what? That's kind of creepy. Why is this here? That's kind of creepy. Dude, why is this here? Why do I have this? Anyway, all right. So what? What is this? No. Yes, this is what I wanted. Okay, just forget about all that stuff you just saw. Thank you, Paz Andy. Very cool. This is what this Zandy Pants, I'm a Warframe streaming person that likes to make builds in various games, and on Thursdays I do it in Warframe, and I'm streaming the Warframe, and I like to make builds in my streams, and I stream Thursday, Friday, Sunday, and also sometimes on Tuesdays to stream Buildcraft in games. And tomorrow I'm going to stream this really cool game you haven't seen before. And the Buildcraft in it's real cool. You should give it a shot. It's free. If you're bored, you can just leave. And apparently, I left myself a little gift, a little something nice in the past. And here's what I was thinking. I have no idea what I was thinking. So Vectis Prime is weird if you want to build it this way, in that you've got the depleted reload thing and Prime Chamber. So that one shot gets repeated over and over. It has extremely high base damage, which is good with 100 munitions. And then, you know, critical delay doesn't really do anything much because you're only firing one shot in the magazine. This still, I believe, affects it. Like, the fire rate is still relevant, but anyway, the idea is that the way that this build operates, in my mind anyway, makes the benefit of moving these around, makes the benefit of running like elemental mods kind of moot. They're mostly just gonna die with 100 munitions. Yeah, to me, it seemed like Sharpshooter, there was like inherently more space here. And when you look at that, it fits perfectly. This is weird. When did I make this? Why did I do this? I don't know. Anyway, this is like, I don't know. Let's just leave this here to freak out my future self. The colors are really popping off in this fashion, which maybe we should address. But yeah, then companions. I'd like to talk about companions before we break, and then we'll play the build a bit. Which will be a really, really good way to balance all of this theory crafting. We probably spent the longest time of any frame stream yet on discussing like what the build will be, what the options are, which is cool. The bleeds proc Sharpshooter. Ooh, oh no. That's a really inconsistent part of Warframe. I don't know. There are many effects where getting the kill will work with a status effect, but some where it won't. That means we have to test that. I'm going to write that in the notes, and we're probably going to test it after the break. Test Vectis Prime Hunter munitions triggering Sharpshooter. Good catch. That is a furiously inconsistent part of Warframe. Sometimes these things work, sometimes they don't. We're going to have to check. But I wanted to talk about companions real quick. There was some stuff in chat about that, so I'll scroll back up. Come back and catch a few other things. Ooh, I see something I see something I like. Yep, I think we're doing that. Anyway, I'll get there in just a sec. That's after my own heart. Lord Chibi, you said I've been trying to make an Equinox who doesn't die. We did Equinox's framework live stream a little while ago, and I have an archive of it that is up on this channel with timestamps. And I made 2 builds in that video, in that stream, and one of them was like a hyper tanky, peaceful provocation focused Equinox. I think it is pretty straightforward. Peaceful provocation renders enemies basically unable to hurt you. It's just a matter of how you want to enable it. And I also think combat discipline is pretty useful. It lets it charge slowly, even if you make enemies so incapable of hurting each other. Yeah. So I hope that helps as something. I'm not going to launch into a whole thing about Equinox right now, but I did do a whole video on that. If you're interested in that, that's there. I will be editing like separately. I'm not going to be editing down that stream. I'll be making a separate video with that information that will go up in the Zany Pants channel eventually. But right now you can find it there. Again, I think like Peaceful Provocation is a good choice. And for Helminth abilities, I used Spellbound Harvest on that one because you have low duration with my build, which allows you to farm energy off the same 4 enemies over and over. But again, if you want details about that, I'd ask you to go check the timestamps in that video. I hope that helps. Let's talk about Worm. So Moe Man recommended using Worm for the companion because Worm has Negate. If you're worried about the whole radiation thing, this is a pretty good solution. Now, the main problem with Negate is that oftentimes some random thing will trigger this. Like the biggest issue I have with negate in general is that sometimes you're just running about and the thing you were waiting to negate isn't the thing you negate. Sometimes people use this on builds they feel are vulnerable to like slash or something. And the problem is that in practice, you'll probably just get a random heat or toxin status effect. This will go down and then you'll get killed by a slash proc. But in this case, I think it's a really good fit because we're playing a build that can make a huge wall that keeps enemies out. So if you're just standing there minding your own business, everything is fine, you will have negate up. And then if you get hit by a wild radiation proc, this will negate it and you won't one-shot your own defense target. Nice. Thumbs up. Solid. Perfectly good use of this. Worm's ability to knock enemies away is also not bad with a build that wants to defend objectives and can pull enemies together. That's sure. So yeah, I think Worm is a great choice here. Worm is good here. But Uncle Nene also mentioned the Nautilus, which is kind of just good everywhere. Nautilus groups enemies together, of course. I don't think the Nautilus is that good here because our main incentive to group enemies together in this case is making a powerful wall with Mass Vitrify. The grouping has little value in this case unless we're using it at a desired moment to group a bunch of enemies together. Grouping periodically is nice, is always going to be beneficial. This is a broadly applicable Sentinel, but I don't think it has as many advantages here where we kind of want it on command too. So I'm not thrilled about that. It still makes sense. Like this is always going to be a Sentinel that comes up in conversation. But personally, I kind of can get down with Worm. Another note I wanted to make is that so when you use Splinter Storm and Mending Splinters, these can affect your companions. They can affect Sentinels too, you just have to walk kind of funny. I'll write in my notes to demonstrate that. But indeed, it is easier to cast it on companions, like a dog or something. Demonstrate casting Splinter Storm on Sentinels. And yes, by the way, in my testing, Mass Vitrify will refresh it on your Sentinel as well. So you really only have to do it once, which is kind of nice. Good stuff. A little while ago, it did also come up a little bit that you could use like, if you wanted to use a Sentinel like Taxon, or even just bring Guardian on your Sentinel to refresh your shields and make Molt efficiency better, more consistent, that like you could do that. Personally, I find the Worm benefits pretty compelling. And I think that because we have some good defensive measures and Mass Vitrify and an Augur mod, it's probably going to be easy to keep Molten efficiency active, but it's something to think about. Yes. Why do you need Sharpshooter if you can use Emergence Dissipate? You don't need Sharpshooter. It could just be helpful to have. You don't need anything. Emergence Dissipate does also force you to stop killing enemies. This is kind of the argument that always comes up, that should always be removed from the discussion as soon as possible. You're quite right that any loadout can, for very little cost, just heal up using Magus Repair, Magus Elevate, and Emergence Dissipate to restore energy. But to do that, you need to stop killing enemies, stop completing the mission. That's fine, like it's there as a backup, but that's what I view these as, really a backup. If something is going to be good for restoring energy or health, the only requirement it needs to pass is that it be more efficient multitasking than this. And I believe that Sharpshooter definitely is. Like, you're not stopping at all, basically. You just go right on killing enemies and you still get energy. So I do think it's pretty good. I don't think Emergence Dissipate is really relevant to the discussion of restoring energy. Nearly every form of energy restoration that isn't Emergence Dissipate is faster. Like, it requires less, you keep killing enemies. It's not faster, it's infinitely fast because you're still killing enemies. And generally you can find a weapon where, like Sharpshooter, or another example for healing would be like on a melee weapon. You might have, what's a good example for me to pull up? Like, instead of using healing, you could use like the Fragor Prime and Life Strike. Equipping this does lose you damage. By equipping this one mod, you do lose potential damage you could have modded on. But generally, I find that on some weapons, It doesn't lose you enough damage that's not still kind of better multitasking. You can still kill high-level enemies without pause and also be healing. But I do think that's a better point for healing. I know some folks are probably about to, or literally right now, saying Emergence Dissipate is maybe a bit stronger. And I don't disagree. I think there are some arguments there. Let's talk about them since it came up. I'm going to make a little split in this stream because I think this is kind of a different topic, even though it'll probably be kind of short. Yeah, so one thing is that the cost of being operator instead of your Warframe is arguably going down in Warframe right now. Arguably, Warframe is being designed in a way where you are going to go between Warframe and operator. You're going to be forced to, is the idea. And so then being in your Warframe or your operator, like, that doesn't really lose you multitasking. That's the argument. I'm not entirely convinced by this. I sort of feel like while you do need to alternate, like in the new Void Angel missions, for example, you don't alternate in a situation where your operator could often easily quickly restore you the energy. That's just my experience so far. I think this is a good thought, and I'm just personally not convinced yet. I think you're right to say, like, if only for future proofing, Uncle Nene. I get that. But again, the main thing about this is simply that it's quick, but it isn't like you literally don't even stop killing enemies. You don't run out of energy in the first place. So I don't think that it needs to be demonstrated every time that energy generation or like even something like Xeneric Wellspring is still really good, even in a world where Dissipate exists, even in a world where it doesn't feel like Dissipate has an opportunity cost. There aren't that many good operator arcanes. Because it is still faster. Like, you do still get to multitask in the mission more. And you can decide how much you care about that. I still have it equipped because I think it's nice as a backup, but I don't think that it makes these moot. The other thing about Warframe, and this is something I've been trying to focus on more in videos, is that the Warframe's opportunity costs are always very low, almost always. You can just kind of equip everything that's relevant to your loadout, for better or for worse, and it's often more a matter of whether you use it. Again, we need to make sure Sharpshooter actually works with 100 munitions, by the way. You could still use it with you could just not use 100 munitions. But anyway, we're going to test that. That's why I think it's useful. It doesn't matter whether it is, like, objectively useful or not. That's not a thing that exists. You should decide based on seeing, me use it as best I can demonstrate it, and thinking about it as a possibility, whether you feel like it is saving you the time. So my job is just to present the argument. It would allow you to multitask. And then you can see, like, am I actually going to do that? Does it save me enough time to do that? I don't know. That depends on you as a player. There isn't an answer to that. Thankfully, I don't think anything in Warframe has yet been balanced in such a way that it makes that a moot point, any energy restoration that is so good that it, like, sort of doesn't even matter whether you would use it, or that has, like, no opportunity cost. For example, if you infuse Dispensary on a Warframe, I don't think you really need any more energy, but Dispensary has a rather large opportunity cost. It's your only Helminth ability. It is not the best ability on every frame. There is no the best ability on every frame. So that's a thing. All of that being said, I do think that Emergence Dissipate is kind of an exception, because it restores so much energy and there is such a low opportunity cost. The thing about healing is that it's, like, kind of secondary anyway. Like, dying in Warframe isn't that punishing. You really just want to get more energy and use abilities more to kill more enemies. And so something that gives you a huge amount of energy, albeit you can't be killing literally while you get it, there's some concern there, don't get me wrong. I just feel like it doesn't immediately delete other sources of energy. I hope that makes sense. Gives you the tools to decide if you'll use that yourself. I do also personally feel what Pixel is mentioning. I feel like we've gotten to the point where we need to operate our loadouts. I think for a long time there arguably weren't even, like, enough options for that to be a big deal. But I personally believe that we've now reached the point where there are enough different operator things that I would like it to swap based on my loadout. They'll probably do that. developers, I imagine this is kind of already on your radar. But yeah. I did want to also very quickly mention, since specific to this Gara loadout, that Emergence Dissipate does have some opportunity cost, just not very much. I think Mage's Repair and Emergence Dissipate are so broadly useful as like safety nets, as backups, that it kind of dwarfs the utility of other options. But Mage's Anomaly is good pretty often. It's just not amazing. I don't know. I think this is forgettable, but it's still good. If it immediately teleported every enemy in 30 meters right on top of you, like it says pulled toward, if that meant every enemy in 30 meters is right here, right now, yeah, this would be pretty insane, but it doesn't do that. It's also not terrible. It doesn't move enemies no distance. It just moves them kind of in between those two things. I like this. This is what I used on every loadout before Emergence Dissipate, which I'm now currently using mostly just to respond to a lot of feedback from the community about this being too strong. I don't entirely disagree. I don't entirely agree. I don't have a rank 5 one, so we'll see. But I think this is a good conversation to have around now. So Chibi and Uncle Nene, thank you for both bringing it up, but I hope you can understand why I think the way I do about it. At the end of the day, the main point is discussing options is sort of automatically the only point of Warframe. And so even if you think that Sharpshooter is useless 100% of the time, the only thing we're here to do really is tell people these options exist. So I don't know what to say. But anyway, I do know what to say, and I just said it all. So thank you for listening. I'm going to break, and then we're going to come back, and then we're going to test out the building gameplay. Shall we? But first, a lot of new subs, mostly gifted subs, and some new follows today, and I want to thank you for joining me. Lots of new gifted subs. I'm not going to read through all of them, but Dragoon, you gifted 35 tier 1 subs? 35 tier 1 subs. And I also got gifted considerably more over the past few weeks. Another batch from, oh my goodness, forgive me, Audio Forces. It took me just a second because I've been gifted quite a few of them lately, so thank you. That's really generous. You both have gifted over 100 subs to the channel, so I really appreciate the support. I would not be able to do this if I didn't have support like that. Not if specifically you didn't do that, but if I didn't have enough people that were willing to sub and get me paid for doing this, I would eventually have to stop doing it. So thank you. That is making the difference right now. And thank you to all the new follows. We had Lightning Hammer who followed last stream, and we talked a little bit then. But yeah, a few new names lately. Good to have you, folks. Those are from Tuesday's stream. Hoping to see you all tomorrow as well, when we're going to stream something I haven't streamed before with you all, but as usual on Friday and Sunday and Tuesday and Thursday, I'm always streaming things that are builds. This is just the game I have not shown you yet. It's a bit of a treat. I think you'll enjoy it. It's interesting because it isn't really, in my opinion, doing its own thing per se. It's much more of a response. There are a lot of other games with other build systems in them that this game is really responding to. I find a lot of games with Buildcraft are I don't want to use the word derivative, but they are doing their own thing. I don't mean derivative at all, like aggressively underivative. They're completely reinventing the wheel. This is a game that I'm going to show you tomorrow, this time tomorrow, if you're around. On tomorrow's stream, this is a game that is very much a response. Again, not derivative, not just copying another game. It really solves some problems that another game's Buildcraft had. And I think that's really interesting. I think you're going to find it pretty interesting too. So I hope you'll join me for that. For now, I will see you all in just a few minutes, and then we'll play some of this build. Behold my Twitch ARRchive Parley segment. This is a part of the show where I hit the restroom and record a little Q&A segment for you to entertain you while I'm gone. This is Past Sandy here. Hello. We have a couple of questions today. First one's from True Mr. Foot, who says, my question is this. I began playing Outriders recently. Hope you're enjoying it. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. and I decided to look up the Buildcraft community on YouTube. Oh no. And it was pretty bad. In my experience, that's somewhat of a trend with looter games. Did you have a similar experience, and what is the reason for this lack of quality content? Oh, I think I know why. It's because looter shooters are somewhat unique in that you need to make a build. You might be thinking that's not that unique, but a lot of other games that heavily feature making something you could call a build have some way that you don't really need to come up with one on your own. A lot of games that you do a run, you get random upgrades as you go, and then you die. A lot of those games restrict the options you're given, so you don't really have a choice in a lot of cases. Or they at least greatly limit those choices. It's not very open-ended, unless you want it to be. A lot of the time you can make it open-ended, but there's the option. Games like, World of Warcraft, there are talent trees, but you're really just picking one of those three things. You don't really come up with the build. There's not much build diversity within that option. It sort of does what it does, you know? So that's another example. Again, these are games where you kind of can sort of make a build, but the game does something to restrict the options in such a way that you don't really need to. Dungeons and Dragons is a great example. You can multi-class and really make your own class, sort of, by hacking together two different classes, but by default, you wouldn't do that, and a single class character really doesn't need to make that many build decisions to be effective. And so the game by default doesn't ask you to make a build, but if you want to, you can opt into that complexity. Again, you're maybe starting to see how, as you go through the genres, it turns out looter shooters are actually fairly unique in mostly featuring gameplay where you need to make a build. You must come up with a build. So why is the content so bad? Well, if people need a build and they don't want a build, they want someone to give them a build, which means that a simplified, unexplained, reductive build is going to become popular. That will become desirable in the community. And these games are designed so that there are meaningful options. So describing an option to someone and not explaining it, having no justification for it, is pretty much guaranteed to be bad. These games kind of indirectly guarantee that people will want, it will be popular to make an oversimplified, reductive, kind of bad build content video for the audience. It's sort of unavoidable in a certain way, I think. That's why I wanted my own community that is like actually good for that kind of thing. You all have really delivered. But anyway, I think that's what's going on. That's my theory. One more question from Lion of Comer, who says, thoughts on the merits of over-formatting warframes to get more starting energy when starting missions? Any frames that particularly benefit from larger initial energy pools? For example, 15 free capacity on Gauss gives me enough energy for a full rotation of Redline, Kinetic Plating, and Firewalker without using Xeneric or Energy Pizzas. Is front-loading energy generally not useful enough to merit locking yourself into a specific build? Yeah, by like putting too many polarities on. I think that's a lot of it. You like forming willy-nilly would, yeah, then kind of limit what other builds you could make. There's that weird thing where like form is really good when it's the right polarity, but then if it isn't, you do get sort of locked in, right? Yeah, I think that's mostly it, but I'll say a bit more. I also think there aren't a lot of game modes in Warframe where it's important to have a lot of initial energy. Probably only when you're trying to get a mission done very fast. Capture missions, exterminates to some extent, some types of sabotage and rescue missions. You'd want to, immediately use the speed ability, for example. So having a bit more energy is good. I think the other thing is, kind of as you said, there just are a lot of solutions already. You can run a Sahasa Kubro and just stand still. It'll dig up a bunch of energy for you. You could use an energy pizza. You could use Xeneric as your focus. There are other, and some of them are Buildcraft choices, but not exactly terrible general use choices that just give you upfront energy anyway. It's kind of a minor, weird, lingering feature of Warframe that I feel like is sort of messy. This might be kind of weird, but I personally wish they would get rid of it just because it feels needlessly confusing. Like, it doesn't feel like a complete part of the game. It feels like something that's just randomly in there. And I think that as those things are cleaned up, the game becomes more and more comprehensible to players, even if it seems like individually there's no harm in leaving these things in. It just makes the game understandable in some way. Things aren't constantly happening that the player thinks, what an idiosyncratic thing to have in the game. Like, why is this here? So I'm not really a fan, and that's why. But I get what you're saying. It's an interesting idea. You can sort of develop your frame's initial energy pool over time. I'm not against the Buildcraft there. Anyway, thanks for the questions. On with the show. And before we completely return to our show, a few thank yous to folks that have supported the stream. Oh, baby, there it is. Brian is my most recent patron. Thank you very much for being my patron. I would eventually have to stop doing this without people supporting me like you do. People supporting me for $1 every month, or people supporting me for more. And goodness, asymptomatic. That sounds like you, doesn't it? $205.31 tip. That was for my birthday, which was yesterday. Thank you very much, Ace. That was awfully kind of you. I had a pretty nice birthday. I played some Loot River and got my ass kicked. It was fun, though. That's not all I did. I also got my other parts of me kicked. Anyway, welcome back. Let's test this build out, shall we? Yeah, let's do that. With these weapons, or we'll just pick some weapon as a stat stick. I know we kind of talked about that earlier, that I didn't really want to get way into it just for the sake of time. Cool. A couple other things. Yatagami, you said check my mail. For Warframe, thank you very much. I will definitely use them. They've come up a lot. As we've been doing framework, my sort of go-to has been put an Warframe on the frame. So thank you. I will definitely use them. I was kind of surprised to use them all up. I had a lot at one point, but I've been using them. They're just some peace of mind too. We're going to test the Vectis Prime Hunter Munitions triggering sharpshooter thing. Even though the wiki says it doesn't work, I want to see it for myself because that has changed at times. And we're going to show casting Splinter Storm on Sentinels because some people might not know you can do that. You just have to kind of walk funny. And let's do that. I don't know if this is a particularly good mission to do this in, but whatever. It should be none that come to mind off the top of my head. I'm not an expert on that kind of thing. Although it is something that we'll come to when a frame is an ability that will CC enemies normally immune to it. That is definitely something we'll discuss when it comes up in framework, but I'm not an expert. I'm much more of a philosophical or systems type of person. I'm not so keen on like the exact specifics that change randomly all the time. Which is to say, I'm very eager to learn from all of you about those things. So glassing enemies to accumulate charge with this thing is awesome. Look at this. So I'm draining my charge, and now you can just charge up really, really fast, and then you could just pop off with the Lightums charge form. Isn't that sick? That's so comfy. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. I just really like this weapon too. I'm very, very happy to have a loadout that enables this weapon. It's been a recent favorite. Yeah, this is gas. Like if you like this weapon, you want to use it with Master Petrify. That's awesome. I suspect it would be really cool with Wah! Oh, I got a wisp mode. Okay. I was like, what? I really like the Lightum. The Lightum is like, I love you. Ah! Like, okay. Ah. Great. Yeah. Pixel, I've been trying to come to terms with my allergy for the word favorite. You can just say one of my favorite. I don't want to give people a hard time when they say, what's your favorite Warframe? Like, they want you to tell them more than just your favorite Warframe. They're just trying to ask an icebreaker question. I don't know. My theme for this year, for this quarter, is to be more flexible with my interpretations of what people say. How do you think I'm doing, people that watch the stream really often? Okay, so I didn't show any of the stuff I wanted to demonstrate. Sorry. Let me go into a mission and actually do that. That was just like I did a mission and quickly got stuff. We did show that the Lightum is really nice with Master Petrify. That was rad, but like down to business. Wanted to show the casting it on your frame. You know, you can cast Splinter Storm on your frame, and then if you walk like this and spam it, It should work on your Sentinel. Is that a thing they undid? You can get it to work. Yeah, there you go. Just run backwards. That's the way to do it. Like so. And you can hit your Sentinel. Now, if you're thinking, no way am I doing that to refresh it every time, you don't have to. When you use Mass Vitrify, it affects your Sentinel as well. So, just so you know, that's a thing that is possible. You can indeed do that. Now, Sharpshooter with Vectis Prime with 100 munitions. Okay, so that worked because I killed the enemy right away. I batted headshots, apparently. Die to that slash proc. Hey, be a good example and die to that slash proc. I can confirm that it doesn't work. That was definitely a headshot, and I didn't get energy from Sharpshooter. 100 munition Sharpshooter does not work. The wiki is correct. Rejoice! But yeah, anyway, go figure. You know, Sharpshooter, I would understand if you weren't so high on as an option. But yeah, I would be interested to hear what you all think about sniper rifles for this. I wish there was an easy way to just, like, sort by sniper, which there sort of isn't, evidently. I guess this probably gets you the snipers, but then other things. Does the Vitrica actually work with the Gara glassing? Does this do more damage to glassed enemies? Because of my chat overlay, I really can't read this text easily, which is one downfall of my setup, but I'm not going to change it just for Warframe. It might seem like that would be a thing I should do, but I stream lots of other stuff. Anyway, this is where it's comfortable. Using an arrow attack during aim glide launches glass projectiles that glass and freeze enemies in place for 7 seconds over 5 meters. Slam attacking these glassed enemies will shatter them, inflicting reasonable damage. Does it work with Gara's glass? Yeah, we could try it. If it does, I don't see much reason not to, I guess. Sure. What does the infested sniper Sporthix, I think, do on headshot? It explodes. It does like an AoE. I believe the Sporthix is basically the what's it called? That other weird, the Zymos, but a primary. But it has weird stats. That's the only other catch. Chibi, you said, quick question. Why do you run Titania's ability on Equinox? If you watch the video, I will explain it. You might have to be a little bit patient, but I do explain that in the stream archive. In considerable detail for your consideration. And if you are still confused, please feel free to ask, but if you haven't gotten to that part yet, it is coming. I will always explain those things when they come up. We could just try this, I guess. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's like the sharpshooter thing. You know, if you're gonna try to get energy out of this in this case, I think you want to leverage the fact that the glass gives you additional damage against enemies. Mass Vitrify makes them take more damage, and then you can use this to focus on killing them up front. If the Sporthix explosion would kill a group of enemies up front, like, that's sick, sure. Yeah. We could try it anyway. Let's see. We're very far away from having enough room on the build. Okay, well, we'll use the Simulacrum and try it at a lower level. How about that? It would be, like, give or take something like this, and then the crit stats are all funky, so unless you want to enable it, which maybe you do, I'm not going to do that right now. We're just going to test it. But surely this is only going to give you 15 energy for the one headshot kill. And in that case, you actually don't want it to kill the enemies in a group. I don't know. Anyway, I mean, I'll just quickly demonstrate what this looks like when you get a headshot, okay? I feel like we're at the point where we should just do that. And I will, in the process, will very quickly confirm that it doesn't give you like 50 energy if you headshot a bunch of enemies. Headshot one enemy and a bunch of enemies die. Well, it probably doesn't, but that would be really good if it worked. So I don't know. Let's find out. That could be a whole loadout, actually. Like, I'll just redo the whole thing right there if that works. I'm almost certain it won't, but... so I'm going to do enemy level, like, 30 or something. The idea being we don't have to worry about the actual damage because I have no forma on it. And I'm just going to quickly... My Sentinel's going to kill all 4 enemies. Wow, that's an actual disaster. Let's just reset and run it back. Just take a break, my guy. Okay, that's a touch disappointing. All right. Let's try primed. What's it called? The mod. Firestorm. Yeah. So we do this again. Nah, man. If it was on kill, that might be okay, but the problem is if you use a grouping ability to group enemies together, and the grouping ability is not ensnare, nothing is gonna get hit. If you group enemies together, you won't be able to get the headshot. I don't know. Not a fan. I will try sniper rifle, but that doesn't work. Okay. Reasonable suggestion, by the way. It's just unfortunately no. This is that one augment. It's just damage, though, isn't it? Yeah, a good augment, but I haven't used that weapon in forever. Anyway, perfectly usable, but... the Rubico, no special synergy, but it'd be fine. Lanka, no special synergy, but it'd be fine. I like the Comorex, I guess. What other sniper rifles are there? I'm sorry, I don't feel like I remember them. Maybe we should use the wiki for this. The wiki has a functionality where you can find, like, all the snipers. Let's look at that. Let's do that. Let's use that. Sniper rifle. Yeah. There's a whole page. Excellent. Turns out there are just very few sniper rifles in Warframe, and that was actually all of them that we just talked about. So anyway, take your pick if you want that. I guess... the Rubico for just upfront damage. I think this is good upfront damage. Don't know that you need this, actually, and it would be a convenient place to put Sharpshooter. How? Could we count some of the bows, too? Can you use Sharpshooter on them? I wasn't aware you could, but maybe you can. Yeah, this is a sniper-only mod. What about the Chakher? I forget what the Chakher is. This counts as a sniper rifle? You might be right about that. I don't know. No, it doesn't. This is not a sniper rifle. Also, this being easy to get is extremely subjective. You should just keep that in mind. That is a very perspective-based statement. This is very difficult to get for players that are nowhere near the part of the game where you can get these. I see what you mean. Once you get there, you can pretty much just get it. I don't know if I'd call it easy to get. This is fine. I think the Rubico is a good fit for something like this because we've confirmed that status kills do not trigger Sharpshooter. The Rubico is the sniper that has like a low status skew. It's got great crit stats, and it's its failing, its shortcoming is that it has abysmal status on a weapon type that already generally doesn't have amazing status output because it's one target. So intuitively, this seems like a good fit. I don't know if you want this build. It's pretty straightforward, I guess. Is there anything people would expect here that isn't on here? I guess like a Grineer Bane. You definitely don't need both elements. Like, this doesn't need to be here. It's not bad, of course. Cold is a good damage type, but it's not particularly necessary. Yeah, I'll probably dump that for that. Chibi, you don't need to tag me every time, that just clogs up chat. A good way to look for weapons of a certain mastery rank is the wiki has a weapon page. Weapon comparison? If that's correct, I'll link it. Yes, that is extremely useful for this kind of thing. You can use the columns to sort by, so you can hit, if you're seeing this page, you can click sniper and then sort by MR. If you scroll over pretty far, all the way to the end. So it looks like at MR, you said MR12, you just became able to use the Rubico Prime, and the Lanka was recently available, newly. And I didn't know any of that off the top of my head. You can super quickly find that information using, this is like the most useful page in all of Warframe. You can extremely easily find weapons that have like a lot, like a shotgun with a lot of crit and low status. Like, I don't know why you need to know that, but you can find out very quickly, you know? So I hope that helps. This is an extremely useful tool. I'm asked that type of question very often, and I have no idea, but you could just use this. I hope that helps. Not a problem, Chibi. On the contrary, I just don't want you to feel like you have to do that for me to see you. No, really? Okay. And Chibi, you shouldn't care what weapons are considered meta. That doesn't mean anything. That's just which weapons people have the limited, generalized experience of thinking are good. If a weapon has good crit and status, then it's going to be good in Warframe. If the crit is like 15% or higher, and the crit damage is like 2.0-ish, it's good. Like, the weapon is just good. A lot of weapons with like bad status end up working out because of hunter munitions, or like what's that mod? Internal bleeding, but isn't there a version of this on secondaries? Anyway, so in practice, even having low status generally doesn't make the weapon have low status, because they can either force the status, or the weapon has low status chance but high fire rate, meaning it will have high status. I wish I could give you a great example of that. But for example, like Soma Prime here, you might not know about Soma Prime, you might not have used this weapon or seen this weapon or heard what someone thinks about this weapon, or know if people consider this weapon good, but none of that stuff matters at all. If you look at the stats, you can see it's got 30% crit chance, 3.0 multiplier, fantastic, and 10% status. Well, you might think that seems kind of low, but it has a 15 fire rate, so you'll get plenty of status. Great, you're in business. This will be a good weapon, and indeed it is. That is, I believe, pretty much the only useful guide. Now, obviously, weapons are still different from each other, but will they do reasonable damage at, like, the Steel Path? If they have those stats, yes, you will be good to go. You will be able to kill the enemies. Some of them might be better at it. That will depend also on your frame, your loadout, your playstyle. And sure, some of them are just stronger. I don't want to give you that impression. Just because a lot of them will work if they have those stats, that doesn't mean they're all equal. Shout out to Pixel Piranha for kind of calling me out on acting like that. I never really meant to give that impression, but when I say this that way, it does sound like that, and that's not true. But I don't think it particularly matters that much. A lot of frames just have a damage boosting ability, or they can gain a damage boosting ability. You can put, Zada's Whisper or Roar or whatever on a lot of frames once you have the Helmet system, or you can run mods elsewhere on your Warframe. A lot of Warframes already have a damage boosting ability, but even if they don't, you could use something like There's a lot of arcanes that will boost the damage of your guns. Stuff like, for example, Arcane Precision here just gives you 300% base damage for secondaries. When you get a headshot, but like if the weapon fires pretty quickly, you will basically get this automatically. Again, only you know how headshotty you are, but even just velocity for some fire rate when you crit, it's a lot of fire rate. Actually, kind of be careful, but anyway. And there's lots of options. There's tons of options. And of course, that doesn't even mention things like Vigorous Swap, which would give you, again, so it's just base damage, which you already have. But that does give you a lot of options. So on balance, you can assume that a weapon is going to be viable. That is, it clears all the content in the game that the game is asking you to do, like the steel path and stuff. If the weapon has good crit stats, basically. It would be a problem if it didn't have good status output, but practically every weapon, like in practice, does, even if it doesn't look like it does. So I wouldn't worry about that so much. And if you build a weapon like that, and it will do respectable damage on the steel path, but it's not enough damage for you, there's a lot of things you can do to increase that. Really, and they're really adding more of that. One good thing about Warframe nowadays is that, if anything, that is increasing. That's becoming more true than it was. It was already true, but it is even more true with every passing update. They're adding more and more and more ways to add damage to weapons. If you want to know how to farm Zaku, you should look that up in the wiki. I don't mean to be dismissive, I know I've said that a few times, but there's just only so much time we have. I can't answer every question, and truth be told, that you don't want me to answer that question. It's better to look that up in the wiki. How hard it is to farm each frame is quite subjective. I did actually make a video where I talked about that. I have a video about the Hellman system, and in that Hellman system video, I talked about how you farm every frame as well, for the exact reason you're asking. You know, a lot of people think, okay, Zada's Whisper sounds like a good Hellman ability, but it also matters that I get Zaku, you know, and that's absolutely true. I, in that video, attempted to summarize how you farm every frame and then rank how hard they are to farm. And what I learned by doing that is that it is pointless to do that because either the wiki would have told you that information or it becomes subjective. You know, for a lot of frames, it was like, you know, if you're in a clan, this frame is automatic. And if you're not, you cannot get this frame except with platinum. Or like, what's a good example of another subjective one? Ash pieces is one where it's like, you might automatically have these if you've been playing for a long time, but if you don't, deliberately farming them is ridiculously difficult. It's like impractically difficult. Stuff like that, you know? So I do believe it's futile to try to describe how hard a frame is to farm. You either can look up their drop rates on the wiki or you can't, in which case it's unknowable how hard it is. But for what it's worth, Chibi, that's a common question. I thought that was worth doing too. And I did make a video where I talked about that, that Helminth tier list video. It got quite popular, so it should be easy to find. Performed pretty well, which is nice. Not surprised, but it was a good thing. That video does contain me talking about frames, including Zaku, and how hard I felt they were to farm. But that is a thoroughly subjective judgment. I still feel like I at least explained why I said it that way, but I don't know how helpful that is. Or yeah, like Oberon like randomly became way harder to farm, like just out of nowhere. Proteus farm is easier if you own a Protea, right? Like a lot of them are just weird, and so oh no, I forgot to do the Coil Horizon thing. Wait, go back. No, I killed everything. Okay. Welcome to Warframe. But yeah, anyway, Chibi, I hope that at least gives you a place to start. I wish I could give a straightforward answer that was helpful, but you literally can't, so I hope you can accept that. Oh no, I killed everything, I can't make a big shield. Well, I was making that point before. You don't need to make a big shield if everything is dead. Anyway. Oh no. Pants down. This is the fear of having two sniper-based weapons. I don't have a whole lot to say about overguard enemies. Chibi, in my opinion, it's just a matter of focus firing them. I don't know what abilities will specifically hurt them, and I don't think you need to do that. But that is subjective. That is my approach to the game. My experience has been that it's sufficient to simply focus them down. But it's not a bad idea to have abilities in mind that are good at killing them. That's a whole topic, too. I would be curious if folks have like developed some thoughts about that, since we've had those enemies for a while. It was something I was kind of sitting on for a while because overguard enemies were new to the game. I thought I'd sort of let me and the rest of us fight them for a while before we talked about them too much, but it's been a little while, right? Maybe folks have some... I've heard some responses about overguard enemies in today's chat, so maybe I've waited long enough. Oops, you're missing a companion. That did happen, yes. Remember when Worm was killing all my test subjects and then I unequipped my Worm? Whoops. Playing a mission without a companion in Warframe is like your pants are down. Like you go into the office and you're not wearing clothes. Shit. The game doesn't entirely work. Yeah, situations like this, we just gotta deploy a heavy weapon and go with that. It's the Velocitus, I memed myself. Okay. Now, the Velocitus is fine, but I wanted a rapid-fire weapon. I was expecting the Mausillon. Damn it. What I need to do is just spend a rainy day swapping every heavy weapon to the Mausillon by default. It's not always the best heavy weapon, it's only one type of heavy weapon. But when I don't know what heavy weapon I have, I want it to be the Mausillon. Like... Damn it. That keeps happening to me. It's like I have my own running jokes that like maybe you all don't care about, but I laugh about myself all the time on streams, and that's like one of the biggest ones. I always have like a heavy weapon I screwed myself over moment in like every stream, and I often just kind of stay quiet about it, but this oppression must end. Tanksy Banksies. And another thing is that for this Gara loadout, you want a rapid fire weapon ready to go so you can mow down nullifier bubbles so you don't lose all your glass damage like I just did. I don't know, maybe the sharpshooter thing is a mistake just because of that. I think the Lightum is a really good option, but I would probably rather just have something that counters nullifier bubbles. Which I suppose that would be the Comorex in some way. You could use the Comorex rapid fire to mow down the nullifier bubbles, and then when you wanted to use sharpshooter for headshots, it can be a sniper rifle. I guess I want to use the Comorex. There you go. Look at that. Future-proofing. I did that. I came up with that 8 months ago, and it came back around. Sweet. You love to see it. Just a little humble brag there, folks. Speaking of videos on Warframe systems, Ragnar says, have you come to any conclusions about how you'll do focus? Either one big video or several smaller videos? Yeah, I was pretty convinced by the discussion you and I had about that. I think the idea of making it several smaller videos makes sense. I've been thinking much more seriously about like, should things be multiple videos or not? For example, I have 2 Excalibur builds I want to talk about, and from Framework, and I think that they should be one video. I think having them be divided up, like the previous iteration of Framework, I think that was divided up for no good reason. Like you might as well just combine that information. I don't feel it was gaining enough by those videos being separate. There's a lot of reasons to separate out videos. So about focus, I'm not entirely sure yet, but I think you made a good point that like there are some benefits to it being all together. Yeah, I don't know. I'll leave the Rubico alone for now and go grab my Como. I love this weapon too. Like I don't need an excuse to use this weapon. I already really like it. But where am I gonna actually put Sharpshooter? Whoops. Get base damage from somewhere. I don't want to take a vial because that's why I'm picking this weapon, so I can shoot rapidly with a sniper rifle. You know, I tried to, for those of you who aren't familiar with this, last year I made a set of weapons, just like 8 or 9 weapons spread out among the slots in a loadout, primary, secondaries, melee, that were meant to fulfill all the common utility. So like when you think, oh, I would like to regenerate energy using my primary, sharpshooter does that. Do I have a weapon ready to hold sharpshooter for me that is like fully built out with all the stuff? Yes, right? We could just cut Serration because I have a primary Merciless. It's not ideal because it means the first few kills, but it's not the end of the world either. Yeah, I guess Serration. So I would do a loadout where I would... never mind. Yeah, anyway, you that's fine. This is a Toxin mod and my crit mod that are one mod, which I apparently have. As I said, I spent some time last year preparing weapons that get that job done, just in case you end up wanting. Big money. And so, of course, we found a loadout where we can easily make enemies vulnerable to headshots, and I'd like to regenerate some energy, so a sniper rifle with whatever. And we just spent like an hour on the stream inefficiently looking at weapons that could do that, and would you look at that? It's already ready. Easy money. Easiest money. The last thing, I need to go, but we should test the Vitrica thing. This is supposed to have damage echo out when you hit glassed enemies, and people were asking if it works with Gara's glassing effect. That is a good question. Let's just check. So we should see the damage echoing out. Should see if Cormac's body shots can do headshots because of the AoE touching both hitboxes. That's weird. Might fulmination a thing. Firestorm, you mean? It sounds like something I would have already put on the Cormorx. Can you not put it on the Cormorx? No, you can. That's a whole thought. I think my reasoning was probably that only one of the 3 ways I'm going to use this uses that. I like the Cormorx not just because it has an explosive sniper rifle mode, but also for this. It's a sniper rifle. And also because when you need to mow down like a nullifier, you can just do this. The accuracy is atrocious, but nullifier bubbles are large. And most sniper rifles are when the drone is on the ceiling, most sniper rifles are pretty bad in that situation. The Cormorx is excellent in that situation. Again, has hilariously bad hipfire accuracy, but it kills the nullifier bubble. So, yeah, I could quickly test if getting a headshot, a body shot with the explosive mode will trigger sharpshooter. Nope. Let me make sure the explosive mode will trigger sharpshooter. Yep. So no, the explosive mode body shots do not cheat and trigger headshots, but that is clever rhetoric. If I was your DM in a game of D&D, I might agree with you, but no. What are we here to test? Right, the Vitrica thing. Turn the enemy level up a bit. We're gonna go watch how, glass them, and then we're doing a heavy slam. That's how you trigger this. I guess we need to compare. What does it look like when you do that with the Vitrica? You throw a glass projectile and then you whack them. This is going to be hard, I think, but we'll try. So they're glassed. Now you do a heavy slam. Oh. But did that not... Did we get that effect, but it just didn't look like it because they were held still? Visually, it looked the same. The enemies just didn't get knocked away, and I feel like the glass was holding them still, don't you think? See what I'm trying to say? Here's what we'll do. We'll try... So, to me, it looks like the mass vitrified glassing does not trigger the vitrica, because mass vitrified doesn't prevent them from getting knocked away, and they get knocked away when you use the vitrica heavy slam on glassed enemies, but mass vitrify alone did not trigger it. So there you go. Yeah, unfortunately, no. It's a clever idea, though. Was an interesting thought. I'm just going to leave this here as a placeholder, so I remembered that does not work, but that was a clever idea. Could you test how Smite works against Overguard? I'm not going to do that on this stream. This stream is a stream that says that it is a stream to Buildcraft Gara. I'm not going to derail the stream to Buildcraft every little thing. I'm sorry. It's just too much. At some point, I could just be testing forever. I'll be honest with you, I just really don't like testing these things either. That is a reasonable question. I'm sorry. I just have to have some ability to specify the things I'm doing when I stream, so I hope you can understand. It's a reasonable question, but I have to go anyway, and I do want to be able to focus the stream on the thing that we are talking about. A big problem I have as a creator that talks about subjects in long form is that, you know, at the end of every stream, I get a little summary that is the number of people that watch the stream, the number of unique viewers. And so usually my streams, Warframe streams, usually have like 30 to 75 viewers concurrently. But the number of unique people watching the stream is around 300 usually, which means that a new person is watching like every minute or so. The reason a lot of people don't do discussion-focused streams on Twitch, the reason most people's Twitch streams are, in my opinion, a little dry, a little boring, is because there's a new person coming in every time I start a new discussion point that doesn't know the context. So it is quite important when we do streams like this to let the stream be focused on the thing it says it's focused on. So I hope you can understand that. And when you say, I would have to build an Oberon, go for power strength, and then try it against the Eximus, yeah, but again, I hope you can understand how you might think it's only one question, but you've been asking questions like that for an hour. So I would have had to spend the whole stream doing that for every little thing. I'm sorry that I'm gonna have the stream not be that way. I hope you can understand that. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed making stuff for Gara. I personally still feel like, you know, for folks who want something really different from Gara, I didn't really feel like there was a ton of stuff, which is never my preference. I would always like there to be some kind of surprise thing I didn't plan to discuss in a build. But personally, I feel like this was mostly expected. I do feel like you can do a lot of it on one build. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoy Gara. I'm happy I got to spend more time with Gara. But personally, I found the build a little dry. Maybe I speak for some of us. Effective, a bit dry. I was going to talk a little bit more about... I might have it, actually, built. I don't. But for a while, I mentioned earlier that I liked using a build that used negative range to make a really tight mass vitrify around excavation targets. I do actually want to quickly demonstrate that. I wanted to fit more of that in, but again, we have very limited time. I will quickly show that, just to show you what I meant. On like Hurricane or something, I would do this when I would do, you know, you can do 2 extractors on Hurricane to get endo very quickly. And it's really convenient to spawn one, charge it up, and then you can jump on top of it and make a little wall, make it its own little, okay? Make it its little cone. But you can see that even with positive range, this build isn't made specifically for that use case. It still works okay. You're seeing the main problem is that sometimes without tiny range, enemies can get under the wall. If you know, it will stop when it hits terrain, and so you can't extend it in all directions as far as you'd like. That's a little silly, but again, just to very quickly demonstrate, you might be saying like, all right, yeah, but it's just a drawback of the ability. Well, if you go full negative range, you can make like a little tower, a little silo around it. That is effective. I think maybe for too limited a purpose. I feel like in most excavation missions, you actually wouldn't want this. It would only be if you planned to completely abandon the objective, which it can be helpful to do sometimes. But again, anyway, I'm just going to show you. So narrow-minded. They lowered the part of the drill that you stand on. Ah, yes, I noticed. That's a strange decision. But anyway. Zivagat, I'm glad you enjoyed this stream. Again, just a little demonstration before we go. It's always hard to fit everything into this tight little 2-hour show, and this was no exception, but I do want to fit this little bit in, because it was useful to me for a while. It might be useful to someone else. I'm not entirely sure it's worth it. There might be other frames that can do this job as well. Yeah, again, see, you can make like a perfect little silo around the outside that doesn't let any enemies through. Which can be helpful. Again, if you build enough defenses, you can mostly just leave this. You're seeing that enemies will probably be able to break one of the walls of this if you leave them alone the whole time. But if you build nothing but defensive stats to make this tanky, like strength and armor and stuff, you can prevent little parts from it shattering. But you can see there is a little hole there that you can barely see. But anyway, there is a little hole there. So I don't know. I mean, it's for a pretty specific purpose. I don't know if that's necessarily worth using, but I've told you all before in previous episodes of this that one of my reasons I'm excited about this series is to find like the perfect tool for every situation in Warframe. And it did occur to me that this is a pretty ultra specific tool. So I thought I would mention it. I don't know, like, I'm not sure you're really missing that much, but it felt relevant to me. I just feel like you can almost do it anyway with this, like, moderate, actually the amount you'd want range. So do I really want to make a build that is just for that? But if you have the mod space, I don't know. It'll be interesting to revisit things like this when we've done every frame and see, okay, yeah, that seems useful in its very specific niche, but is there a less niche build that is good at that thing? And I think, like, I don't know yet, but probably yes, you know. I think you can figure something out. Anyhow, something that is interesting to me, and so I thought I'd sneak it in at the end. But I gotta go. Thanks for watching. Next week, we may... So there's going to be a few weeks where this will be down because I have to get a wisdom tooth removed. That's on the 14th, but I might not be here the 9th either. So stay tuned. The frame we would be covering next would be Garuda Prime, and I actually don't have the final Garuda Prime part. I need the Neuroptics, but I have all the other pieces. I got a pretty generous gift of relics from Densoro. Thank you very much. You really helped a lot. I got all the parts except the Neuroptics. So I might very well have it in time, and in that case, fine. But I might not be able to stream next week, so I'll keep you posted about that. But the next frame we'd be doing is Garuda. So if you have helmet ability ideas, if you have, again, specific utility you like on Garuda, I think Garuda's an interesting one because she has 4 really idiosyncratic abilities, just really weird abilities. This is going to be a really good one to discuss. So keep that in mind. Again, we will be doing Garuda next. I'm just not sure that will be next week. And if you're around tomorrow, I do stream on Friday, Sunday, and Tuesday as well at this time. If you were free 2 hours ago, that's when we usually stream. And I like answering these general build questions. You know, Chibi was asking about stuff. I have to limit these streams or we would never get to do these things. Like I have no choice but to do that. I want to help with these things, but there comes a point where you have to understand when I can't just try everything. I have to lean on you to ask the wiki the questions that the wiki could answer and to accept that I can't test every little thing. I think for enemies with Overguard, you should just focus fire them. I don't think you should sacrifice build space to kill them. I think that you should just shoot them. You should just kill them first. But that's just me. I understand if you're concerned about them. It's not a bad idea to build against them. But I hope you can understand how, especially in a stream where we didn't even get time for everything I wanted, I'm not going to derail it for every little thing. I hope you can understand that and not be upset with me about that. But I do like to do that when we have time, and on Tuesday, we've been streaming Warframe now and again. That would be when I would have time, so Again, I'm not inviting you to demand every single thing of me, but you're not doing that. You just want to know a few things, and that's okay. So I just wanted to clarify that. There's a lot of good questions today, and I want those questions. When I push back against them because I have not all the time in the world, I want to make sure it's clear that it's not because it's bad to ask questions about things that you think are interesting. Even if I say, I don't think that's interesting, talking about that is the point of these streams, so that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that. Cool. I will talk to you all tomorrow. Again, a game I'm really excited to show you tomorrow. Check it out. If you hate it, you can leave. It's weird. It's a really interesting furtherment of another game's Buildcraft. Again, I think a lot of Buildcrafty games really reinvent the wheel, which is for better or for worse. But this game is really a response that is kind of responding to some problems of another popular Buildcrafting game, specifically another game, while still really doing its own thing. I just think it's really interesting, so look forward to it. Can you tell us the other game at least? Sure. The game it's responding to is Slay the Spire, which I played quite a bit of, but I think Slay the Spire has some problems as a Buildcrafting game. This game responds to those things in some pretty interesting ways. This game learned a lot, you could say, from Slay the Spire. And I was personally pretty impressed. I think you'll be interested to see too. Anyway, I'll talk to you all soon. It's not Inscription.